walking away, so I might as well have my say. For all the dams that I never gave, and for every damn whale that I failed to save. For every little fad I didn't chase, and every little fool who just didn't like my face.
Oh, Joe Jackson is back. Welcome to Ask or Tell Me Anything. We got 4 calls on the line already. The number's 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Before I get to those calls, let me tell you a very quick story about Joe Jackson, which will not make you like me, will make you not like me, something like that. It's all in the context of my having been, as I often remind you, America's worst rock critic. In my defense, if there can be any defense, I also had a lot of other jobs. I was working at a major metropolitan newspaper, but not so major that I didn't have 6 other jobs. Anyway, so the very young and unheralded Joe Jackson is in town. This is during the kind of new wave revolution, early 1980s. And so I was suggested by his people. I mean, he had put out that album, their first album. But it wasn't, people weren't just talking about Joe Jackson all the time. But it was suggested that I go downtown to his hotel room and talk to him. So I did, but I didn't really have that many questions to ask him. I guess I could have asked him, well, is she really going out with him? But anyway, when I was done, and I thanked him very much, and I don't know if I was there for a full half hour, is what I'm saying. And as I stepped out into the lobby, into the hallway of the hotel, and then I kind of walked away. Maybe I might have doubled back for some reason. All I know is I heard his publicist or his manager or whoever she was say, "He's done already?" And I think the other problem was it was 11 o'clock in the morning in Hartford, Connecticut, and he wasn't performing. I think they were counting on me to eat up some of Joe Jackson's day. But at that time, being the America's worst rock critic wasn't even the biggest problem. The biggest problem was there wasn't necessarily a lot of questions to ask Joe Jackson. That's all I'm saying. The other thing that I want to say is, and I'm sure it'll come up over the course of today, but maybe it won't. It turns out religion is still a thing. I was getting a little worried that religion wasn't a thing anymore. But I mean, all morning, it's just been Pope Leo versus Trump, and Trump, pretending to be Jesus, and religion is still a thing, and I'm kind of relieved about that. All right, well, let's go to the phones here, and we're going to kind of take them in order that they came. That seems fair. So we'll begin with Eric in Cheshire. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Colin. I'm calling to introduce a sensory activity and a form of meditation that I learned from Tom Brown Jr.'s Field Guide to Nature Observation and Tracking, which he titles as Ear of a Musician. But that I have given a new title to as Orchestra in a Stream, because it involves positioning ourselves close to the edge of a stream or waterfall, either standing or sitting, and remaining in that one spot for a while, and focusing on the sound of the running water.
Yes.
And if we listen long enough and carefully enough, we find that we notice that the flowing water doesn't just produce one rushing sound, so to speak, but there's actually a combination of more than one distinct sounds such as splashing, dripping, bubbling, and popping within that one sound.
Hence the orchestra in a stream. So what you're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you advocate that a person sit beside a mountain stream, feel its waters rise, listen to the pretty sound of music as she flies. That's what they should do, right?
Well, basically, you want to.
But you can't start. You can't start going do 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 do, because if you do that, you won't hear the stream anymore. I think Paul McCartney should have thought that through a little bit. Like, you can't just right away say listen to the music of the stream, and then start going do do do. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Am I hitting home?
Okay, so what
is this on?
So what happens here is that the more we focus our attention on the sound of the running water, that we might often, generally in our harried daily lives, might interpret as one sound. Okay, if we stay long enough in one spot along the edge of a stream or a waterfall and listen carefully enough for long enough, we will notice that there is actually a combination of different distinct sounds.
Right. Hence an orchestra in your stream. I feel like we're on a loop here. We're on a kind of a loop. But I think it's a good loop, and I think people should open themselves up to that experience. If it turns out you do have an orchestra in your stream, you should see a urologist immediately, because that's not right. That's not normal. But Eric, thank you so much for your call. I think it's a great version of just using nature to meditate. I also, if you remember the show we did with Robert McFarlane, he kind of reminded me that when I'm walking around Penwood State Forest, instead of muttering to myself in a Robert Durst-like fashion, I should just listen to the birds and all the sounds of the forest. And so I try to do that more. But I still do mutter. All right, we're going to go to Molly in Barkhamsted. Barkhamsted, birthplace, possibly, of the mysterious Lily Tyson, enigmatic head of Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions. Molly, welcome to our show.
Hi, Colin. First of all, is McFarlane that Irish guy? He's very cool.
No. Well, I mean, he's a writer, and he writes, I don't know how Irish he is, but he writes about nature. He writes about things underground, and he was most recently wrote "Is a River Alive?" He was on our show for that. He's that guy.
Okay, maybe he's so cool. I figured he was Irish, like those of us that are.
Sure, why not? Why not annex him?
Okay. So anyway, I called in on Friday. You never got to my call, and while I was waiting, I was thinking about my friend who doesn't care for you or your show. And so anyway, I said to myself, if I were to argue with her, I don't argue with her because I love her and I don't want to interfere with our relationship. But I thought if I was to argue with her, I would say that his show is reliable in the most unpredictable way.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's a reliable and in the most unpredictable way. I think also you just shouldn't argue about this. I think your instinct there is correct. Don't let a media person be a dividing line. You love your friend for other reasons. It's not important, ultimately in the long haul, that your friend loved me. But I like that you're thinking all this through.
Anyway, then while I was thinking about that, then I thought about how other things I don't agree with her about.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is, there's a lot of them, and they're all small, and some of them I'm just not going to tackle this lifetime.
Right.
She uses, I go a lot to mom and pop stores,
mm-hmm.
and I always use cash there because I know that if you use a credit card, it comes out of the money that they get for the sale. But anyway.
And she doesn't like that? She thinks you should go to a big box chain store and use your credit card? Is that point of friction?
No, she goes to the mom and pop coffee shop with me. And she just noticed, in fact, that I also tip.
Mm-hmm. She's just a very difficult friend. It's interesting.
She's not. She's lovely.
She's lovely, okay.
But anyway, she doesn't pledge to NPR.
Yeah.
And
does she listen to NPR?
And that got me, huh?
Does she listen?
She
to
listens
NPR?
to just not your show.
Yeah. I'm
And-
trying so
and
hard not to be incredibly hurt by this conversation, and I'm doing okay so far. I'm a little shaky, but I think I'm going to be okay.
But anyway, I've been pledging since the teens, like since a very, very long time, been a sustaining member. And I just don't get it, because I have other friends that listen to NPR,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't pledge. They don't, and I just noticed that, and that kind of is heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to say, Molly.
Okay.
We deal with this a lot during Pledge. By the way, Brendan Foley didn't put you up to calling up and saying all this, did you? Did he? Are you safe right now? Is Brendan Foley holding you against your will anywhere? You could just tell me right now.
I don't know who he is any more than McFarlane.
Okay.
He doesn't sound Irish, though.
He could be Irish, but all right. So no, there's a beautiful paradox here. I'm actually semi-serious about this. There's a beautiful paradox here, which is, we're never going to charge people, There's just not going to be a paywall or whatever the radio equivalent would be. There's not going to be some kind of subscription service or anything like that. And our website is free for anybody to access. And so all the work of our news department is there. And you can just go to the website and listen to shows whenever you want as well. And we're free on the air. We don't carry actual advertising. And I think that's great. And I don't think that I really want anybody to feel like they have to donate, because some of the beauty of this is it's going to work whether you donate or not. Now, I sort of believe from my own experience, I used to work at WTIC, a station to which I really didn't listen to unless I was on it. And so I would listen to this station, particularly when it left the classical music format and went to more of a news talk format. I would just listen to it all day long. And I was working in a different radio station, but sometimes I would donate here, and it always made me feel better, and I felt more connected and like more of a stakeholder, and even more like I was betraying my actual employer, which was also kind of a good feeling. And if people want to support the station, they should do it for themselves. They should do it because it makes them feel good and makes them feel better. But I just feel like some of the beauty, and this is the paradox, some of the beauty is we're just going to keep doing this. Whether your friend who doesn't tip baristas, whether that person gives us any money or not, it doesn't make any difference. And she can listen all day long, and we'll still be there, and it'll still be free. And that's the beauty of this utopian experiment that we call CT Public. All right, we have to move on here. Thanks, Molly, for your phone call. That was great. And okay, we'll just go down the line here. Although I'm really very eager to get to Derek, but I don't want to play favorites. So here's Mike. Mike, what have you got on your mind today?
Well, this wasn't a great weekend for Donald Trump, or as you alluded to, his heir apparent, J.D. Vance, who was tasked with two items. One, end the Iran war, and two, get Viktor Orban reelected in Hungary. And he failed on both counts. And I'm hoping that the Viktor Orban result is an indication of people sort of losing a little enthusiasm for the whole xenophobic, hard-right populist thing, at least in Europe.
I mean, let's be clear. The guy who did win is not exactly Paul Wellstone, but
no, he's he's right of center.
But yes, I think it's almost indisputable that however we differentiate Orban from Magyar, that's a big divide in the minds of the voters of Hungary, and so that's kind of a good thing. I do blame the Orban people. I think they handled the J.D. Vance thing wrong. I think like Carnival dunk tank, like if you agree to vote for Viktor Orban, you can throw a ball, and if you hit the target, J.D. Vance goes in the water. Something along those lines. Or if 5 of you get together and pledge to vote for Orban, one of you, the strongest of you, can punch J.D. Vance in the face. There, I think you really would be tapping into the unique natural resource that is J.D. Vance. But I don't think they didn't think it through all that well. But yeah, I do think J.D. Vance today, he's nuts if he doesn't buy a Powerball ticket, because he is due. He's due for something to work out. So get the quick bit.
And to add insult to injury, he's a recent convert to Catholicism, and Trump has decided to start a war with the Pope.
Yeah, I know. I mean, not since Stalin have we seen this kind of confrontation. So yes, absolutely, I'm with you. JD had a bad week, and I hate to be a negative, petty, nasty little person. But I'm happy when J.D. Vance is not happy. And I know that's not a good thing. I assume Pope Leo, if he were here, or, any reputable Catholic theologian, would say that's not the way to think about this. It's just because you dislike somebody and everything that they stand for, that doesn't mean that you can wish them ill. I understand. I understand that that's theologically impure, but that's still how I feel. All right, so we're going to keep going, and we're going to do Russell, and then we're going to do Derek. Derek, don't go away, because I think you might have something important here. Russell, what's on your mind?
Hi, Colin. You had somebody call around Christmas time who was objecting to a particular scene in La La Land. The whole movie was objectionable, but anyway, she had this complaint about one scene, and I thought, well, if you don't like it, you could probably change it with this technology now. I guess solar or something, but that might even be gone. But anyway, the question it raises in my mind is, should we expect that there to be certain auteurs akin to a jazz composer that will take some classics, Autumn Leaves would be the music maybe, and start improvising and doing improvising scenes and changing some of these classic movies, and it'd become a new genre of jazz movies?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would invest in a concept like that. Although I don't know. I mean, obviously, the movie business, like everything else, is going to have to keep up with changes in technology, and also its kind of overall worsening fortunes, at least as a theatrical experience. So the idea of modifiable movies, of pick your own ending movies, I mean, I think what they'll do first, and I give Tina Fey some credit for doing on Netflix a version of The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, her second big TV series, that did have the thing where you could just, at various junctures, you could pick one way or the other way. And I think that's how it'll start. It'll be like you could watch stuff. I mean, this already does kind of exist. But I think having, infinitely modifiable movies so that with AI, it's going to be very, you could just tell AI what you want to see happen up on the screen. I think that would be a fairly, we're probably 5 years away, if that many years, from that kind of hack where you buy the movie along with some kind of AI-enabled program that allows you to alter it to increase your satisfaction. I'm not sure that's a good thing, though. I think in some ways, if that becomes prevalent, it'll mean that we're ceasing to be able to interact with art on its own terms. We just want it to be the way we want it to be. And I'm not sure that's what art exists for. It's a longer conversation, but I'm not sure art exists simply so we can make it a little bit more personally satisfying to ourselves. I think in some ways we should have to, if people are going to start giving happy endings to Arthur Miller plays and stuff like that, I don't think that's good. All right, now we're ready for Derek. This could be important. This could be a thing that changes the entire soul of America, or it could just be a phone call, too. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on Derek. Hi, Derek.
Hi, Colin. America's 250th, big day to commemorate.
Yep.
But we were wondering, will America ever reach the point where we can envision Lady Liberty as gender fluid? I'd like a slice of that film.
Yeah, you can sort of see that. First of all, I don't know whether America will reach that point, because it seems to me that the 2024 election kind of wound up hinging heavily on the alternative attitude. But I get what you're saying. And really, there isn't any, we should stop saying Lady Liberty, first of all. But that's not really the name of it. It's the Statue of Liberty. I used to work, just as a stray thought, I used to work with a woman who really did resemble the Statue of Liberty, and I thought it was just me. And then I was asking coworkers, "Have you noticed that Mary Jo looks kind of like the Statue of Liberty?" Everyone totally So I think we brought it up with her eventually. I don't think she was 100% pleased about it. But I should probably start saying they. I would be cool with it. I think it would be good if the Statue of Liberty were gender fluid. I also think it would be a big mistake for any Democratic politician to run on that idea in the next 8 years. That's just me.
I think they could win with it.
Yeah. Say what again? Say that again there, Derek?
I think they could win with it, probably.
No. You're just asking for trouble. They need to stay away from some of those kinds of issues anyway, and at least in the next 2 cycles, 26 and 28. All right, so we've got a little break here. Time for a little break. We have some interesting people waiting to talk, including, I believe, Nora Soros. We'll see. So hang with us. All right, welcome back. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. We are going to take your phone calls here at 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Let's give you an example of how this goes. Here's Sarah in Manchester. Hi, Sarah. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine.
So I had a question because you're a news people and you know about optics.
I am a news people.
Yeah, so the thing that Trump put up last night depicting him as Jesus or God, and he's like blessing somebody in a casket. I think he took it down now. Who is he blessing? Because it looks like Epstein to me.
Well, first of all, my first question would be, we'll get to Epstein in a second. Is he blessing that person or is he preparing that person to rise from the dead? Because the person looks kind of dead. Well,
yeah, they were in a casket. Yeah. I think they were dead.
Well, is the person in a casket or just on a bed? The person's, I'm looking at it right now. I don't see a casket. I see a pillow and I see a blanket. It could be like a hospital bed or something. I don't know. Also,
but why is it that guy? Because there's another guy in the background who has a white beard, and I think it would be better to put him in the casket because he looks more like a Trump supporter. That guy just looks a lot like Epstein.
Well, actually, you know who else is in the picture? I'm not kidding. The Statue of Liberty is in the picture in the background over what is Trump Jesus's left arm. The Statue of Liberty is in the background. There's a lot going on in this picture. There's a flag.
Wait. I want to see one more. Maybe it's the Pope's brother, Louis.
That could be.
It could be the Pope's brother, Louis, in the casket because he likes Louis a lot better than the Pope.
He has said that. So here's everything that's in the picture. There's an eagle, and the eagle is blotting out the stars on a big American flag. And then there's Trump in his robes. And then there's people. One of them looks like maybe a nurse or doctor. And there's the guy with the white beard. I think that's John Dankosky. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might be John Dankosky. And then there's somebody else praying. But pull the picture up if you're listening at home. Like there are these figures over Trump's head flying in the sky. And one of them looks like some kind of discarded Marvel superhero prototype or something. Like, what is that person? What is that thing that's up there flying in the sky? Now, let's get back to your original question. I don't think that Trump would have wanted it to be Epstein. But, we know AI kind of has a mind of its own. And what if AI took all of those instructions and said, okay, I'm kind of familiar with all this stuff that this person is asking me for. And it seems like Jeffrey Epstein would belong in there. Because the person lying there
saves the world.
The person who's lying there, he doesn't look exactly like Jeffrey Epstein, but he doesn't not look like Jeffrey Epstein. And in this day and age, in our degraded state of cognition, that might be enough. But yes, but anyway, go back to the picture, Sarah, and puzzle over it some more, because there is quite a bit going on there. All right, so we're going to keep going here. 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Here is Nora in New Britain. Hi, Nora.
Hi, Colin. I'm sorry I just woke up, so this might not be super coherent, but it is. It's me, Nora Soros.
Okay, Nora, I figured it was you, and I think doing a show for people who just woke up would be good. Like, we could do Ask or Tell Me Anything at 6 in the morning and just see how people do at it.
That would be different. Yes. So my question is, I'll try to give you a little context first briefly, and then I'll ask the question. I was at the grocery store with my husband, and I was telling him about how I hate the self-checkout, because all of the female, they're female robots, right? All of these
robot voices,
robots,
robot
Alexa,
voices,
Siri, they're all female coded. And I had learned back when I was in college, when I was doing papers, when I was in my super feminist stage, that people are more comfortable with female coded robots. And Japan has done studies on it. People in the U.S. have done studies on it. And my husband goes, well, Marty is male. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, Marty doesn't have a voice. And Gordon says, well, he doesn't think that it's patriarchy. He thinks people just like melodic voices. And so it has nothing to do with the patriarchy. It's all about the vocal tone. And I said, well, why don't they just make them Welsh? Because Welsh people also have melodic voices. And it got really philosophical in the grocery store. We were talking about like Finland and if a more egalitarian society in Finland.
Did you go bring this up with Marty? Did you go over to Marty and just air some of your concerns with Marty?
I mean, we unfortunately had to leave the produce section, and we had to go to the self-checkout.
Did Marty make you leave? Did Marty say, okay, did Marty come over and say, okay, that's enough. Get out of here. Get out of my produce section.
Marty almost bumped into us. I don't think it was very polite. I mean, if I were a woman, which I am, I would have said, excuse me. But, I mean, that's not because of the patriarchy. It's just because I have manners.
I don't like the way there's with the Stop and Shop voice robots, the thing that I don't like about them, and I think also they are a little, I mean, it would be interesting to get calls about this. I think they might be a little bit calibrated for the neighborhood that they're in. Like
potentially true.
Yeah, like I sometimes go to the Stop and Shop that's in the city of Hartford's over on New Park Avenue. And that bot asks a lot more questions and seems kind of suspicious and, and it's just like a lot more sort of hypervigilant and wary sounding. So yeah, I don't know about
the hypervigilant. That's like a woman who's experienced trauma.
It could be.
Robot.
Yeah. So Welsh voices are more melodic. You just tossed that off like I would know that was true.
Well, if you listen to recordings of Dylan Thomas, which I figured you have because you're into poetry.
It's part of my workout regime as we do under Milkwood.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
All right. Well, listen, I'm gonna tuck this all away. I mean, if you don't know, if you don't listen to the show very often, I hate Marty. I try not to have hate in my heart. I know I just kind of failed with G.D. Vance. I'm not having a good day in that regard. I try not to have hatred in my heart, but I hate Marty. And somewhere, I swear to God, somewhere in some regional headquarters of Stop and Shop. If you don't know who Marty is, Marty's this little big. He's big. He's kind of meant to be kind of intimidating, I think. He's a big ass robot. And and he just comes up to you for no, and there is a supercut of me saying F off, Marty. And I'm not saying the much worse word too, but that's what I say to Marty whenever he comes over. And then he usually goes away. But there's got to be a bill that I'll have to pay for that, right? That'll come due someday. I'm going to be called in and said, like, they're going to play the cut for me. This is you telling Marty to F off, which you've now done 93 times. What do you have to say for yourself? I'll be ushered into some little interrogation room and Stop and Shop about that. All right, so meanwhile, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. And here we go with Todd from Greensport, New York. Hi, Todd.
Hi, Colin. I know on the show last week sometime, I just listened to him record. I'm not sure which show it was. But you were talking about Uriah Heep and whether he was a sycophant or not. And I would say that he probably wasn't, because he kind of fawned over everybody, even people who couldn't really provide him with anything. And I think as a sycophant, even David Copperfield, he knew that Uriah Heep knew that David Copperfield couldn't stand him, yet he still fawned over him. I think for people like Trump sycophants, they know that he likes that flattery. And I think that's the big difference. To be a sycophant, you have to flatter somebody who wants the flattery as compared to somebody who doesn't. You're just kind of fawning. And obviously Uriah Heep was doing it to kind of cover up his mechanizations behind the scenes. But
yes. And I mean, the other thing is, his go-to pitch, his strikeout pitch was to say how humble he was. It wasn't it wasn't to say how great the other, not that he didn't say that. I'm sure he did say that, but he said it in the context of how humble he was. To me, that's a little different from being sycophantic.
But it is if you look, like you said, if you look up, sycophant, it says about Uriah Heep, but I don't think that he really is one. I think he's something a little bit different than that.
Yeah, he's a little bit more, he's manipulative. He's manipulative.
Yeah.
And he tries to disarm you by telling you that he's nobody. When in fact he thinks he's the most important thing in the world. He thinks he's the center of the universe. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's a dissembler. I would say he's a dissembler more than a sycophant.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. He's dissembling. He's creating a sort of facade that he hides behind to do all his nasty stuff, but pretending that he's quite humble and is your friend. Yeah.
So let's take this experiment to the next level. You need to go to Greenport's diviest bar tonight and just sit under the bar, near some tough-looking guys and say, okay, Uriah Heep, sycophant or dissembler? Just see what happens. See if a huge fight breaks out over this.
Maybe I will.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the dive bar.
It's a boring Monday night. What else are you going to do? All right. Thanks for your call, Todd. And yes, our number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. I do want to just come back to what I said at the top of the show, and then maybe we'll take a kind of an early break. But we have lots of open lines if you want to call in. I also have Mr. Carp envelopes that I can open if things grow tedious or stale. I was thinking this morning that, how do I even express this? Well, first of all, we know that sort of earlier in this century, we saw the rise, maybe actually in the late 90s, but certainly earlier in this century, we saw the rise of militant atheism in the United States. And you had the four horsemen of the atheist apocalypse, Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris, Christopher Guest, and Richard Dawkins. Christopher Guest is not part of that. Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins. Christopher Guest, I think, is not an atheist horseman. And they empowered a whole group of people to not simply say, I don't believe in God, or I prefer not to talk about religion, or I don't think religion is entirely relevant. But they they empowered a whole bunch of kind of passive-aggressive atheists to become really aggressive and not very passive, and just to be really dunking on people who believe anything, and which I found every bit as unattractive as people who evangelize too much, come on too hard, and that the whole thing was just unattractive to me. But they did so in one of Stoppard's plays, I think it's Jumpers, in one of Stoppard's plays, he talks about, one of the characters talks about the moment at which the tide turned against religion. He says something like, there must have been a discernible moment, the moment when the nose had it, so to speak, which I've always loved. But I feel like this argument, is really not as settled as people make it seem. I mean, what did we all talk about all morning? About what the Pope was saying, and Trump and his crazy Jesus picture, and I don't think religion. I think religion is still a thing, and I think I'm happy about that because I like to talk about religion. And I think when you listen to tomorrow's show with Christian Wyman, you'll sort of get a little bit more of that. Christian Wyman is a poet and a theologian down at Yale Divinity School, and I don't know. I'm worried that I didn't do a good job of letting Christian explain exactly his point about consciousness and faith, but it'll all come through. It'll all work out somehow. All right, let's take a quick break. Our number is 888-720-967. Use this opportunity to call the way Lenny did, 888-720-WNPR.
You threw water on the fire. Now I'm in the wild without a light. Laying here without you is like laying with a ghost. How did finally wash the smell out of my shirt you wore so well? I'll admit when I threw it in, gave it one last whiff. You threw water on the fire. Now I'm wow, without a light, laying here without you is like laying with a ghost. I did finally wash the smell out of my shirt you wore so well. I'll admit when I threw it in, gave it one last whiff. 'Cause I planted.
So we are back. First of all, I want to remind you the number to call. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. 888-8888. No, just 3 8s. 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR. We're going to get to Lenny in just a second, but we have to do some thank yous, starting with Jonathan McPants, who's wearing many hats today. He's not wearing any. He might be wearing one hat, but he is the technical producer of the show. And he is the regular producer of the show. This is probably a distinction that's lost on most people anyway. But anyway, he's doing the job of Dylan Reyes, and he's doing the job of Jonathan McPants. And handling the phones today in place of Robin Doyen Aiken is my favorite leprechaun, Meg Fitzgerald. And I don't know who else I'm supposed to thank. Maybe that's about it. Eugene Amatruda is also the Jedi Master. He is there guiding us to our proper destiny. And Dylan Reyes is off somewhere, but he's still taking an interest in the show and cutting up the music and stuff like that. All right, so 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Let's go to Lenny in Stamford. Hi, Lenny.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Have we? Are you from Stamford originally?
No, I'm actually a Bronx boy.
Okay. Then there's a question that I don't have to ask you. Anyway, continue.
I'm referring back to the picture that Donald Trump posted online today. When I was watching Morning Joe this morning, and when I saw that picture, it just freaked me out. I mean, here he's positioning himself as, as God. And it's just unbelievable that anybody could really look at that picture and see what he's saying and not think that A, he's being sacrilegious, and B, he's a megalomaniac, basically. He's a narcissist. He thinks that he's God. And that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, some of the things that you just said were kind of already entered into evidence. I mean, we knew he was a narcissist. But this isn't an isolated thing, and it is part of an iconography that he and his sycophants and enablers have been working on for a while. In fact, not all that long ago, it's about a week ago, I guess, Paula White-Cain, to the extent that Trump has a nominal church. I mean, he's not really a churchgoer, but during his first term, he kind of adopted a pastor, an evangelical pastor. Her name was Paula White, I think at the time. Now she's Paula White-Cain. But she, in front of a whole bunch of other clergy, compared his political and legal struggles, Trump's political and legal struggles, to the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. This is during a White House Easter lunch. She's suggesting that the stuff that Trump has gone through is analogous to the crucifixion and resurrection. By the way, it didn't go over well with a lot of other religious leaders. This is also an old strategy. I mean, think of the number. I mean, the divine right of kings was sort of based on this idea. And if you want to go back even further, Augustus positioned himself as a divinity or a semi-divinity. In fact, some of the entire point of the Aeneid, of Virgil's Aeneid, is to make the argument that Augustus is descended from one of the gods and is therefore not a mere mortal. So that if you want to have total power, one thing that you can do is you can claim that you're some kind of surrogate for God. And this is an old technique. I mean, we could be here all day listing leaders who've done this. It's kind of a weird technique to try in these times. But I also think that they'll try anything, and they float all kinds of trial balloons. And I think for Trump at this point, I mean, I actually do think his mental health is deteriorating, and maybe his cognition is deteriorating. And his ability to screen out bad ideas, which was never great, it was never one of his superpowers, but his ability to screen out bad ideas at this point is almost non-existent. I mean, yeah, in the way that you're saying, Lenny, anybody who took a look at that should be able to say, maybe not a great thing to try. But he doesn't seem to have that. He doesn't know how to say no to himself, and he doesn't want anybody else to say no to him either. So anyway, further thoughts, Lenny?
Let me stick in a different issue that I did not discuss with your producer, but I happen to be a Vietnam veteran.
Mm-hmm.
I was a combat medic over there, and to me, it's sinful that there are 500,000 Vietnam veterans who are homeless at this time. It's just that needs to be corrected. That's a personal issue on my part, but it needs to be fixed.
Yes, and that's one that you can't lay entirely at the feet of Donald Trump. This is a problem, the problem of neglect of our veterans, and the neglect of just unhoused people in general is a real stain on America's reputation, and it is a problem that has traversed a bunch of presidential administrations. I would say that the Trump administration is probably less interested in it than any I've seen before. But yeah. So the number 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Let's go over to Joe. Joe is in Waterbury. Hi, Joe.
Hey, how are you, Cal?
Just fine.
Hey, the woman who called in and was talking about the robot voices, male, female.
Yeah, Norosaurus, yes.
Yeah, I've always thought how funny it was on the Connecticut lottery when you cash a ticket, if it's a winner, they have a robust male say, "Congratulations." If the ticket is a loser, they have a woman's voice that says, "Sorry," like with sympathy.
Yeah. So we want the affirmation of, I mean, this is, you're really talking about a heavily gendered understanding of life, that winners need to be validated by men and losers need to be consoled by women. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, it's good because the men's voice is so robust. It's so congratulations, like you've done so well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, attaboy. Exactly. So yeah, I don't think I've ever done. Does that happen? Like, is that when you sort of take the ticket and you put it under a scanner or something like that? And
no, it's when you turn it in to cash it in. So,
okay.
or you're having them check it in general.
Oh, having them check it. Okay. I just buy my Powerball ticket, and I tell them that I'm JD Vance, and I just hope that someone will take pity on me and let me win something for once. Thanks for your call. Our number 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. I want to mention a few things that we're doing for the rest of the week. One of them is we are, in fact, tomorrow going to air, as I said, our Christian Wyman interview that was taped last Monday in New Haven. And on Wednesday, we're pretty sure we're doing a show about Thomas Pynchon. This is sort of my idea, which may mean that it's a bad idea. I hope it isn't, though. So Thomas Pynchon, One Battle After Another, is based somewhat anyway, nominally based on one of his novels. And it made me think about, what a shadow he cast for decades And I have a lot of questions about that too, and I have questions about whether novels are important anymore the way they used to be. But anyway, we're going to explore all of that. And on Friday, we are doing a show. This is going to be a tricky one. This is going to be microsurgery. We're going to do, occasioned by the movie The Drama, we're going to do a show about the problem of spoilers and the problem of surprises in movies, surprise endings and plot twists and twist villains, a term that I just learned, and also how to talk about those things. I mean, even critics have to sort of figure out some way to describe a movie like The Drama without actually telling people what happens in the movie. So anyway, all of that will be on Friday, and we'd love your input. You can write to Colin Show, all one word, COLINSHOW, at ctpublic.org. You can write to that address about anything you want, but particularly if you have things to say about Thomas Pynchon, or more likely about surprise endings and plot twists. All right, let's go to Marissa in Bristol. Hi, Marissa.
Oh, hi, Colin. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I have a question about the Republicans not reacting to what Trump is doing. How can this be? Not one person.
Well, there are people, and think about the defections that have gone on. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably the most public one.
Yes.
But more and more,
the same.
and Thomas Massey. The usual suspects. Although, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene only became one of the usual suspects recently, and I think that those defections are going on maybe a little bit less noisily. But they are beginning to happen more and more, and you're going to see more and more votes that don't go his way or are way closer than they used to be. And I also think in the rank and file, I mean, if you look at polling, Republicans are in fact deserting Trump. The MAGA coalition seems to be splintering. Young Republicans in particular, or young people who voted for Trump, are having buyer's remorse. Underneath all of this bluster is, I think, a genuine fear at the beating heart, if that's the right word, of the Trump administration, that they are losing it. That they are, in fact, losing support pretty fast. So, I think they're going to be people who are just going to stay right there until the lights get turned out. I think Lindsey Graham will be ready to decide, but I don't even think his entire cabinet supports him at this point. And certainly, go ahead.
They're not saying anything. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, the price that you would pay for saying anything if you were a member of Trump's cabinet
you'd be fired.
You'd be fired immediately.
Yes.
But I think you're going to see people get more. I mean, first of all, as we head towards the midterms, I think it's going to happen faster and faster, too. We're heading towards the midterms, and they are just on course for an iceberg. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, in fact, the Orban stuff should scare them. But even if that hadn't happened, I mean, it's just very, very obvious that
I hope everybody gets out in November, and I hope they're going to get a shellacking, like President Barack Obama said.
Right. Well, it would be good. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Marissa. I thought you were done. But yeah, I don't know. I was listening to Fareed Zakaria and Ezra Klein talk last night, and talking about whether the USA can get its reputation back as a leader in kind of the rules-based order internationally. That, we've just done so many things to betray that reputation since 2016. Will anybody ever respect us? And one thing I think Zakaria said was there really needs to be an overwhelming rejection of these policies and of these people in the 2026 midterms, the 2028 presidential vote. It's going to be a gigantic rejection that the world can see this. The world will understand these policies that we're seeing right now, the policies that have us in Iran doing what we're doing, that these aren't necessarily the wishes of the American people. It's just somebody who got in control for a little while. And we're going to have to emphasize that difference. All right, you can bring up the music. It's time to say goodbye. Thank you for listening.
I'll never be missed.